Here are the topics we'll cover today as it relates to patch 396. We'll cover the addition of the 2023 maintenance dates to the application and the launcher. And then we'll cover some updates and fixes to contract file and P2 projects under administration. We'll also look at some fixes and updates at the district level. Next, we'll look at fixes and updates to finances, specifically CLINS, modifications and changes, and progress payments. We'll also briefly touch on submittals to look at the transmittal log, report fixes and updates for schedules, and some updates made to the import and export module. Okay, so first up, we have the CEIT maintenance dates. For 2023, these have been added to the login view as well as the launcher. And so since the launcher was updated, a new launcher will be needed for this patch release as well. Okay, so moving on from that into administration, specifically contract file for government mode. Here the issue is that when a transmittal was returned for corrections to the contractor and then deleted from contractor mode, those files from the document package within that transmittal would remain present in the contract file for the contract. And so this should not be the case, and it has been corrected. The files now are removed properly from contract file upon deletion of a transmittal in contractor mode. So I've got my contractor mode set up here, and I've worked through to get this returned for corrections. So as we can see, it's been returned for corrections. The attachment I added, again, is called brown bag test. And so I will try to delete the transmittal. And before I refresh, we can see that the contract file did hold that file that I added. And it did delete. So that issue has now been fixed. When you delete a transmittal from the transmittal log in contractor mode, it will also remove the file from the contract file. Okay, so here we had another issue occurring in the contract file. When a document was added to the contract file by clicking on this generate document button, and selecting a Word template from that lookup that comes up, the sign document button would remain disabled, so it could not be digitally signed. And that has been corrected. And when a document is generated from a Word template, that sign document button will still be available. Right. So here I've manually added a document to the contract file. And if I click on the Generate Document button, I will make a little test selection. You'll see that the Sign Document button remains enabled, and you can digitally sign the document. So before I do sign the document, I want to move on and look over a issue that is later on in the presentation that will include a document signature position. So I will come back to this one and sign it using a document signature position that we'll review later. Okay, so before I do that, moving on from contract file, we'll now look at P2 projects. So in contract setup, there is a checkbox to use only one single phase for the contract, and that checkbox needs to be unchecked, and the P2 project length must have more than one item in it for this phase title to be displayed here. And then when it is displayed, it can be edited as needed. So real quick, a note on that checkbox in contract setup. It is intended for contracts to check it if they only want to use one phase. So please use caution with this selection and make sure that if you select this, that means that you want to treat all phases as just one for the contract. So if you select that checkbox, it's going to lose data for all the other phases. So any linkages that you had with a previously unselected contract, those will be lost. So again, please do use caution when using that function in RMS. However, if it's unchecked and the P2 project has multiple items on it, this phase title will be editable. Okay, moving on, we'll start at the district level, fixes and updates. So this is just a quick update. The master format 2016 has been added to the specification section selections to use in RMS. This is sort of at the district level, but it's also at the contract level. This option is also available in the specification sections submodule under the submittals module within a contract. Okay, so here's where I want to pick back up on that document that we generated. So I just thought I could hit two birds with one stone with this. So in the district library, you can create document signature positions using the document signature positions module. And on that screen, the print on page number field was not functioning correctly. So as you can see for this position, we put that we wanted to print it on the first page, page 1. But as you can see here, it printed on page 2. So the issue was that whatever value was input in this field, the signature was generating on a page greater than that value. So if page 2 was entered here, it would show up on page 3. And so this has been fixed. I will demo this. So as you can see, though, print on page 2 and print on page 2. And we'll go back to our document that we generated. This is the upcoming patch 396. And before I do that, I'll go back to contract selection, go to district library, the document signature positions, and I created one already that I can select. And so I've specified that I would just like it to be printed on page 1 for this signature position. And now I'll use that in this document that I've added. Okay, so if I click on the Sign Document button, it does function as it should. And I'll go here and select my custom signature position. Click on Finish. And I'll view the document. So a note on viewing the document, I was previously experiencing some issues viewing it in Edge. So just to avoid any issues, try and make sure that you're looking at PDFs from RMS in Adobe. Otherwise, sometimes it has trouble picking up the signatures in a browser environment. So as you can see, this signature position that I created is showing up, in fact, on page 1. And the generated document, I was able to sign it as well. So next, we have an update to the contract security classification module in the district office. So this can be a little confusing, so I will demo it. But basically, when selecting these fields here in production, when you select the field, it clears the selection that was there, even if something was set previously, which I think can be a little confusing. It would reset when you clicked out of it, but we have fixed that. So whenever you select it and a previous selection has already been there, it will remember that in the field. So real quick, I'll go into the district office, go to contract security classification, and I'll just make an arbitrary selection up here. And so this is in the upcoming release. So when I click on it, it remains there. Even whenever the list drops down, it remembers the previous selection. And now I'll show in production to show what it is currently doing. So this is selected as none. And you can see whenever I click in it, it clears that field. It doesn't remember that none was selected. It will reset whenever you click out of it. However, I guess this is just a helpful update so that it's less confusing. Okay, moving on from district, we will look at fixes and updates made to finances. So first we have an update to the current CLINS submodule. From the current CLINS selection view, you can now double click on the CLINS to open this view shown here. And then within that view, you can also use the funding button to pull up another screen which shows the obligations for the CLIN. All right, so I will demo this real quick just to show what the screens look like and that you can select it as I mentioned. So here we are in a contract and we'll go to the current CLINS submodule under the finances module. We just have one CLIN here. And when I double click on it, it will pull up this screen with more information on the current CLIN. And then if I select funding, it will pull up this next screen showing the obligations for this CLIN. And to back out, you can back. And then that is a small update to the current CLINS submodule. Here we have another kind of small update. This is for the modifications and changes. So a new PCF folder option has been added to the mod packages, and that option is System for Award Management, or SAM, documentation. Okay, moving on to progress payments. So here the issue that was occurring with this issue was occurring with contracts that have the track funding at project level, manually enter obligation amounts for payment funding method set in contract setup. So whenever this setting was selected in contract setup, it was prorating the obligations for an invoice, and that should not occur. So this has been corrected. RMS no longer prorates obligations when this funding method is set in contract setup. And after the obligation calculations are complete, the earnings by obligation column will be reset to 0, and the user will be able to enter values there. Okay, and we will also look at this one in the application. Okay, so here I am in the contract, and again, I'll go to finances and get into progress payment. And here we have a progress payment that we can start working on. And I'll enter some arbitrary amounts here just for testing. Excuse me, I need to add a date, forgot. Okay, and then I'll go to the additional earnings tab and go ahead and select this as done. And then as you can see, these are set to 0 instead of RMS prorating the obligations as it previously was. And these are editable fields. All right, moving on. You could probably see it in the screen I just had pulled up. So I'll quickly show it again. This column has been added in the progress payment selection view to indicate whether a payment was originated from C-funds or RMS. Okay, and real quick for the Submittals module, specifically the Transmittal Log, there was an update to the naming convention of files in the transmittal document packages. So now all of those will follow the same format as documents like the ENG 4025, where the transmittal number comes first, and then the document title comes after that. So try and make things more consistent there. Okay, and now we'll move into report fixes and updates, starting with the QA daily report selection view. So there was an issue here with the contains signed documents column. It wasn't accurately capturing whether a daily report actually contained signed documents or not. So as you can see here, this in fact says it contains signed documents, but it in fact does not. So that has been corrected, and this column should function accurately. We will go into a contract to make sure. So we'll just go into the QA daily reports under the QA/QC module. And already we've got a bunch here. So right at the top, this says it does not contain signed documents. So let's double check on that. And it does not. And so now on the other hand, we'll check that it does contain signed documents. And it does, it contains one signed document. So real quick, we'll check it again. And yes, it does. So that is functioning correctly now. That issue has been resolved. All right, so moving into summary reports. So for the contractor claims report, some of the sorting options were yielding really mixed results, and specifically the project manager sorting option was throwing this error when trying to run the report. So all of these sorting options have been corrected, and I can demo some of those right now. Okay, getting set up here. So I'm going to have both production and the upcoming patch release up for this test, or for this demo, excuse me. Okay, try and size these down. Okay, so I'm going to set some parameters for the report. And so starting off, I'll show the sorting by contracting officer, and we'll look at the difference between those two. So I'll run it in production, whoops, and set the same parameters. And I'll also run this in the upcoming release. So first off, in production, we sorted by contracting officer. So already off the bat, we can kind of see that there's not really, it's not at least alphabetized. It's kind of just, it seems to be just randomly assorted. And then in the upcoming release, it seems to be sorting them alphabetically correctly now. Go to page 2. Page 3. And yes. So that option is functioning correctly now. And then we'll also look at the office sorting. Excuse me, I'm sorry, I meant the customer sorting. So run that here, and also run that here. All right, so here we have the production, excuse me, sorry, I'll go ahead and make this bigger. So for production, the customer sorting seemed to inadvertently add a blank entry for each page. So, oh, excuse me, maybe not. not for each page, but yeah, so every other page it seemed to be showing blank entries for customer, and it didn't seem to be sorting it correctly either. So that's been fixed. All of these options have been fixed, but I just really wanted to review the seemingly like significant ones. So here is the upcoming release where this issue has been fixed. It is sorting correctly now for the customer. Okay, and I'll move on to another one. If there is a specific one you would like to see, go ahead and enter that into the Q&A section, and I can cover that specific one if I don't already cover it here. So real quick, I'll go ahead and just show the project manager. This is the one that was causing an error. So in production, we'll see that here. It was pulling up this error whenever we're trying to sort by project manager, and throw another error and then another error. And it would not allow the user to run the report sorting on the project manager. And so that is functional now, and it does sort by project manager correctly. So it did pull it up for us. Sorry, I'm having trouble finding. Oh, there it is. Okay, so all these are blank at first, but okay, so yeah, and now it is sorting everything correctly. So yeah, all that to say, all of these sorting options have been corrected by our development team. Okay, next up in summary reports, an issue was occurring with the project listing summary report where the BOD growth percentage was not populating on the report. And as we can see here, the contract status sheet is displaying it correctly, but the project listing shows 0. So this has been corrected, and the BOD growth percentage now shows on the report as it should. So as we can see, it matches up with what is in the contract status sheet. Okay, next, still in summary reports for the change request register with government estimate summary report. A parameter checkbox was missing for the option to include mods uploaded to PCF outside of RMS. And so we have added that to the summary report parameters view. And we also noticed that it was missing this section header for the screen. So we went ahead and added that in as well. Okay, moving on from summary reports and into contract reports, we'll start with an issue that was occurring with the 3-phase control worksheet final follow-up report. So when attempting to preview this report, a window would appear stating that activities require a follow-up, and it would block the user from previewing the report. So this has been corrected. The report no longer requires an actual final date to preview the report. Okay, again in contract reports, in the activity schedule report, the percent earnings column was not generating correctly. So as we can see here, it's all generating as 0 for these, when in the contract that is indeed incorrect. This has been corrected, and the column now generates the data from RMS correctly. Okay, next is an update to the all milestones schedule report. When a contract has multiple phases, a selection grid will display on the parameter screen to select a phase for which to run the report. If the contract only has one phase, though, the report screen will open without this selection grid. So I will check that out in the application as well. So we'll go to contract reports. and search for our report. And this contract does have multiple phases, so a selection grid is available to run the report from. Just make sure it works. And then if we find a contract with a single phase, let me check on that real quick. So this will be the screen for a contract with just one single phase and without any multiple phases. And you'll just have the option to preview it and print. Okay, moving on to schedules real quick, just a brief update. A system milestone was inadvertently added to the screen and it has been removed. It will no longer show up in this screen or show in any in the milestone schedule or any summary reports. So we have corrected that as well. All right, so import and export next. So we'll look at some updates to this module. First up is an update to two areas. In the import submittal screen, the option to overwrite existing submittals has been removed. And in the import SpecsIntact file screen, the option to replace the submittal register has also been removed. There is one caveat to this though, as I've mentioned on the slide. Office and district administrators do retain these options in their screens. So if the contract needs to overwrite an entire submittal register, please reach out to your district and or office administrator to perform this action for you. All right, real quick, I will demo this. I just need to get a different user account set up here. All right, so I am logged in with an account that doesn't have any administrative privileges. So I'll just go into a contract, navigate to the import export module and click on import submittals. And as you can see, that override exists. Both of the options really have been removed. And since there was only one option after we removed the override existing submittals option. So this notice here is just displayed, letting the user know that imported submittals will be merged with existing submittals. And I'll also take a look at the import SpecsIntact file. I can go ahead and try and add one here. And again, only the merge into register option is available for this screen as well. The replace register has been removed. Again, if you need an overwrite of the submittal register, please do contact your office and district administrators to get some assistance with that. All right, and finally, in the import real property screen, the option to export real property items to Excel has also been removed. So that screen is only going to allow importing of real property items from Excel. And this is for everyone. That's not just for non-administrative users or just administrator users. This is going to be an update for everybody in the upcoming release. Okay, and now we have listed some YouTube videos that we found might be helpful. So for the administrator, we've got a contract file and P2 project video. In the district section, we've referred to the document signature positions and the specification section videos, finances, modification, and progress payment videos. These are all available on our RMS training YouTube. I've also added a link to that down at the bottom. And then we've also added the RMS website and KM portal links here. And of course, the JIRA service desk and help desk numbers. So if you experience any issues or just have any other questions, please contact us at the JIRA service desk or the help desk, or if you'd like to call, go ahead and use that number to give us a call. So that now concludes our brown bag presentation. Are there any questions that can be answered?
I believe we've answered all of the questions. There was one question about when sorting by names on that contractor claims report. what does it sort by, the first name or the last name? It's sorting by the full name, so it will take usually the first name because that's what's entered, first name and then last name. Okay. So the question that's being asked about the milestones, does RMS flag mandatory milestones for users to ensure these are placed on each project? That actually depends. So there are some settings inside of district milestones as well as office milestones and contract milestones. There are system milestones, which are on every single contract, regardless of any policy related to the district or the office that you happen to be in. Other locations based off of the district's policy will have milestones set up a certain way to enforce that these milestones show up on every single contract that is created and have certain requirements based off of that. And the same thing with the office milestones. So for your question, if you're looking for the mandatory ones, you'll have to refer to your district's policy and find out which ones are set up. And if they are set up, then it should just show up automatically inside of RMS. For the question for the YouTube videos, here's the list here. Also, all of these slides are available on our website. If you go to rms.usace.army.mil on the first page, you will see a link to the brown bag slides. Go ahead and click on that. It will take you to this, so that way you don't have to try and copy these by hand. You could just click on them to go to the YouTube videos that are referred there. So there is one in here I don't think that has been answered already. So the question reads, we use a car tracking report generated by the summary report, which I assume pulls data from the modification package. If a modification package is uploaded outside of the mod package tab, I'm guessing that means the checkbox is checked saying that it's going to be loaded outside of RMS, not loaded there. Will the generated summary report recognize when that option is selected? In that particular case, I believe there is a, if you go to the summary report, that first view for your selections, there should be a checkbox that will allow you to go in and view the ones that were not uploaded inside of RMS, that were uploaded outside of it. Okay, so I did get an update for the question about the mod packages uploaded outside of RMS. If you don't upload it inside of RMS, then the summary report isn't going to be able to recognize that, because it was not loaded through RMS. Are there any other questions? I do not see any other questions. Okay, since I do not see any other questions,
All right. So we will update these slides with the Q&A that occurred here. We will add it to this slide. Once we update those, we'll send those back to the TMO and they'll add them to the KM portal, and we'll also add them to the RMS site. And again, this was recorded, so keep an eye out for this video if you'd like to refer to it for any other users or anything like that. And so that will be made available on YouTube. Okay, if there are no other questions, we will let everyone go. Thank you all for attending.